It's a really complex, crazy kind of...
Oh my God, it
setup.
really is. So Infinity Pool is the film we're talking about, a science fiction horror from Brandon Cronenberg, the son of David Cronenberg. My name is Phil, we are Boys on Film, and I'm joined by Matt in the US. So have you seen Brandon Cronenberg's previous film, which was Possessor, with Andrea Riseborough?
I did see Possessor, and I did a film before that about medication, like a horror movie about, what was it called? Antiviral?
Antiviral? Yeah. I haven't seen Antiviral. I saw Possessor, and at the time I wasn't underwhelmed, but I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to. But now I've seen Infinity Pool, I want to go back. Yeah,
even though they're not really related, you can see the through line between the films. And the first two films are more similar to each other, Antiviral and Possessor are a little bit more calm and kind of like meditative. I mean, there's still horror, there's still scares and stuff, but it's not as over the top crazy and kind of, I don't think that this movie is an action movie, but has a lot more kind of like crazy dramatic action things going on in Infinity Pool.
It's crazy to think that he's only directed 3 features. I mean, I guess he's got the education and the influence from his father, and obviously a lot of his traits do come through in his films. I mean, they're very similar in some ways to what David Cronenberg's done in the past, but I still think his films are, very unique, even though they have those elements of what David does.
He has body modification horror, which is Cronenberg's kind of like main trait, I guess he's famous for, that he did at least a dozen films with that kind of theme. It has some of that, but it also has the idea of society and how these things play out in the real world, as opposed to like a small enclosed story about someone's body morphing into an alien or something, that kind of Cronenberg can get small. And I think Brandon wants a little bit more of a wide scale kind of story about larger themes, maybe.
So it's a great cast. I mean, we've got Alexander Skarsgård. Have you been watching him in Succession? Are you watching the current series?
I haven't. I'm actually not a Succession person. I know, believe it or not. I watched a couple episodes, and I watched it whenever it first came out, which I think was maybe 4 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So it's like in the depths of the Trump era, and I just couldn't watch these people for like... They're so horrible, and it's just like, I hate all these people. I can't follow these people.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, Alexander Skarsgård, he definitely plays tortured well. He plays tortured well specifically in this film, Infinity Pool, but obviously he's a bit more controlling in Succession, but he definitely does that tortured thing. There's a lot of angst going on, and he's pretty terrifying in Succession, actually. He's quite,
Can I make a confession about this film and Alexander in this film? I really like this film. Spoiler ahead that I really like this film a lot. I think he's kind of miscast in this film.
Do you really? I think he's really well suited.
I'll give a super short intro to the film. He's on vacation with his wife it's a imaginary country, but it's supposed to be Eastern Europe. And I think they filmed it in Croatia, so it's supposed to be a resort Eastern Europe country. So he's on this vacation in this resort that's super, luxe, high expensive resort. And he's supposed to be an author who's not extremely successful. And his wife is very wealthy. And so he's kind of like a kept man in her wealth. And so he's kind of this kind of almost failure kind of figure. And I think that an actor who's a little bit less gorgeous and strapping and kind of like this alpha male, beautiful Nordic man would be a better suited for this role, where he's kind of like an average looking dude who's like handsome enough, but kind of average, who's not as imposing of a presence, might be a little bit more believable as a target for a group of people in this film.
I mean, it's very important, isn't it, what somebody looks like? It shouldn't be, but in a movie, I think when you're thinking about the context of the character they're playing, you kind of got to believe that is the character that is real on the screen. So if that draws you out of that, I think, it's obviously an important thing.
But it's just kind of like, I wonder if this would be better if he was not so massively attractive and beautiful as this man who's supposed to be a loser, quote unquote, but he I don't know in what world Alexander Skarsgård walks into a room and people are like, what a loser. You know, it's like he's
never going to happen.
No, that's what kind of like, he's supposed to be a loser at the beginning of the film, so that we won't belabor that point, but
yeah. He's very
great.
vulnerable in this. I mean, he plays a really vulnerable person, and I think he does it really well. So I think that's why, I mean, we've probably got a difference of opinion. I can kind of understand what you're saying, but for me, I didn't feel like he was the wrong person. I felt like it was a great role, great performance. I mean, from all of them in this.
Having said what I said, he's really great in the film.
He's a struggling writer, and they're obviously on vacation, and there's an accident, and it is really nightmarish. I mean, what happens after that accident? I mean, it's nightmarish in more ways than one, because there's a doppelganger element. Obviously, can we talk about that? I don't know. I guess that's yes. The real mystery of the film, isn't it? You don't know where it's going, and also it's quite confusing because there's a lot of overlaps, and it's like, my head is frying.
I think that's on purpose, though. I think Brandon Cronenberg wanted to make this kind of head trip kind of film where you don't know not what's reality, because I think it's all real in this country, but which people are real human beings. I don't think this is a spoiler because I think this is in the press for the film, is that they accidentally hit someone with their car and kill them. And the couple that Alexander and his wife meet up with and befriend at this resort have been there before, and they know that the country is very like authoritarian, strict kind of military government, and that they can't hurt anyone in the country, and if they do, those major consequences. Basically, you'll be killed by the police if you hurt someone in their country. So there is a bypass of that in this country, which seems to have this weird resort culture where wealthy Europeans or wealthy Americans go to this country, and if they do something wrong, if they kill someone, hurt someone, whatever, they can go through a medical process where they create a double, like a clone of the person. And then that clone, since it looks like the person, can be killed as kind of a penance in order to appease the people that we actually killed the person. Alexander, or whoever it happens to, has to pay a huge amount of money in order for this to happen. And then they can go about their day. And I don't know if it's clear that the people of the country, that the person being killed is not a real human. I don't think they ever really make that clear. I think the people of the country might be duped into thinking that they're actually killing the people for revenge, but they're not actually killing the person. It's just a duplicate. So the whole story is about who is actually a duplicate clone and who's a real human being. I mean, there's so many themes. That's just one theme in the movie. It's a really complex, crazy kind of...
Oh my God, it really is. But you've obviously got that initial fear. I mean, you've got that accident to start it, which is pretty, I mean, that's full tension. But you've got the fear of being in another country where the laws are probably a lot stricter than back home. But then you've also got the fear of who to trust, and the people around you aren't the people that you think they are. So it's just one scary element, like building on top, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is, I mean, the effects in it also. I mean, you mentioned the trippy element. There's like an orgy scene, which is really trippy. I mean, obviously David Cronenberg has done that too, so there's that similarity. But I think this is pretty intense, though. I mean, that the visual effects are amazing in that segment.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and in the cloning sequence of the bodies, lots of light effects, and I'm sure obviously special effects, but a lot of it with lighting and distortion stuff. It's really cool. It's a really psychedelic kind of film. I
mean, there's loads of really good scenes, but my favourite scene that made me lol quite aggressively was Mia Goth. She's drunk and she's sprawled on the bonnet of this car, and she's calling out to Alexander Skarsgård, who's playing the character of James, and she's just screaming at him, James! And she's obviously hammered. She's so drunk. But you see this really dark side of her personality. She's just shrieking at him from the bonnet of this car with maybe a bottle of champagne in her hand as well, a bottle of wine, and she's absolutely off it, and she's just screaming out, James! So good.
She's one of the best things in the film, and I'm a big Mia Goth fan, so she just keeps going. I mean, I think her whole thing is horror films. I don't know, or horror or maybe sci-fi-ish. I don't think she really goes outside of that kind of genre, and I'm totally fine with that because she's captivating to look at. She's really gorgeous in this movie, and she's just like so cold and dark, and it's just a film that just keeps getting darker and darker and more screwed up the longer it goes on. And I really thought it was fantastic. I was along for it. I think one of the main takeaways of the film are all of these people, once you know the idea of cloning, is Mia Goth and her husband and their friends who are other rich tourists, are they human beings? Or are they the clone people of, like, do the clones stay there if they don't get killed? And the humans go back to their homes? Or have they been cloned multiple times and are they not the original human? It's super, I mean, it leaves a bunch of open-ended questions.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think that's what's clever about the film is that you still have a lot of questions unanswered at the end. So it's not resolved. It's not like it's an easy kind of A to Z of like movie where, you know, everything is kind of explained to you. You kind of come away from it still being intrigued and mystified by elements of it, and I think that's great because it's, you know, that's what cinema should do. Cinema should, you know, kind of intrigue you and be provocative. It's definitely provocative. Exactly. But talking of gore, I mean, obviously, you know, David Cronenberg's familiar with a lot of horror films. This, I mean, it is gory. There are a lot of violent scenes in it, but I think it's a lot more accessible than Possessor. I think Possessor was gnarly, was more gnarly than this, I think. Although I think this is probably more terrifying.
It's more terrifying, but I think the horror in this film is more kind of, it's like human, it's more like, it's not really supernatural once it gets going. It's more like humans being horrible to other humans or being horrible to clones, but more of a physical kind of horror, not supernatural horror, but like someone holding a gun to you or beating you up, that kind of horror, as opposed to aliens or something like that. Yeah. It's a lot more the horror of people being horrible to other human beings on purpose for fun because they can get away with it, which is kind of the theme of this resort or this location.
With that in mind, with the resort, obviously the location, it's almost like White Lotus in hell, isn't it? That's what it feels like. It's like a really hellish version of White Lotus, even more than that series. I thought it was really fun, though. I mean, that's a really strange thing to say, isn't it? This was a really fun movie, but I think it was a real roller coaster ride.
Yeah, there's dark humor in it. When we saw it in the theater, there was definitely laughter at certain points. Sometimes uncomfortable laughter because it's so screwed up, but sometimes, like the Mia Goth scene that you described, it's just funny because she's just being over the top and kind of silly and crazy. And sometimes you have to laugh at how screwed up the situation is because, I think the reason that you could say there's laughter because it is kind of a satirical comment on wealth and class and power and in certain people, in certain citizens of certain countries in another country and how they behave when they can think they can get away with terrible things.
So verdict for Infinity Pool, I'm going to give it a 4-star rating. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I want to see it again now.
Yeah, I give it 4 stars as well. And I think it's a movie that you do, once you see it and know what it's about and what happens, you can investigate it again a second time and really try and pick apart the details about what's going on. Since the movie's about cloning, are they a clone? Are they human? And when that happens and how often it happens. And it's something that really needs a dissection of more than one kind of viewing, I think. It's one of those movies.
Definitely, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Which I usually like that.
So it's Infinity Pool. I'm not actually sure where you can watch it online. I know obviously it's had a cinema release just recently.
Well, in the US it's available already to stream and rent, I guess, on iTunes or whatever, Amazon, whatever store you get films at. because it's been out here for a couple months now, so it's already on those services. But
I'll stick all the information down in description anyway.
Yeah.
And good luck with your new album, Matt. Microfilm, back with a new album. It's really good. I've heard half of it already. And one of the tracks is now out, so you can download it. So we'll stick the link down below.
Definitely. Check it out, please.
Yeah. Good to see you, Matt. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.